In the Star Trek universe, many iconic starships are built on Earth, particularly at facilities like the San Francisco Fleet Yards and Utopia Planitia Fleet Yards. While Utopia Planitia is based on Mars, Earth remains a key location for designing and constructing some of Starfleet's most legendary vessels. Here are some notable ships and their connection to Earth. The first one is the USS Franklin from Star Trek Beyond. The USS Franklin was a peer ship to the Enterprise NX-01, featured in Star Trek Enterprise, having been launched from the San Francisco Fleet Yards sometime before 2151. Measuring only about 137 meters in length, this vessel is one of the smallest in Starfleet's history. Under the command of Captain Balthazar Edison, the USS Franklin participated in the Shindy Crisis and the Earth-Romulan War before disappearing in 2164. The Franklin played an important part in Star Trek Beyond, as Captain James T. Kirk and the USS Enterprise crew had to revive the 22nd century ship to rescue the Yorktown from Krall, launching it from the planet Ultimate's surface. Number 2. USS Enterprise from Star Trek, the original series. The USS Enterprise is the most renowned starship built at the San Francisco shipyards, with Captains Robert April, Christopher Pike, and James T. Kirk at the helm. The USS Enterprise from Star Trek, the original series, is 288.6 meters long and 127 meters in diameter. The launch year of the Enterprise, noted on its dedication plaque featured in Star Trek, the original series, is 2245. Serving actively from 2245 to 2285, the Enterprise became the most celebrated ship in Starfleet history. The ship met its end in Star Trek III: The Search for Spock, when Kirk triggered the self-destruct sequence to eliminate a threatening Klingon boarding party. Number 3. USS Shenzhou from Star Trek Discovery. The Walker-class USS Shenzhou was constructed at the San Francisco shipyards and was under the command of Captain Philippa Georgiou. The exact dimensions and launch date of the Shenzhou are uncertain, but in 2249, Georgiou mentioned to Michael Burnham that the ship was old, but she gets us where we need to go. The Shenzhou became historically significant as the starship that ignited the Federation-Klingon War when it confronted T. Kuvma's sarcophagus. The Shenzhou was rendered inoperable during the attack, and in 2256, the crew evacuated the vessel, leaving it to drift through space. Number 4. USS Discovery from Star Trek Discovery. The ship was launched around November 2256, with Captain Gabriel Lorca at the helm. While the exact size of the USS Discovery has not been mentioned on screen, behind-the-scenes information estimates the Crossfield-class starship to be approximately 750 meters in length. The ship was distinctive due to its groundbreaking spore drive, which offered a quicker alternative to traditional warp speed. The spore drive was integrated into the USS Discovery during its assembly in San Francisco, as the Crossfield-class science vessel was designated to trial the new technology. After the control crisis, the ship was presumed lost, along with its entire crew, and all the data regarding the ship, its personnel, and the spore drive was deemed classified. 5. The USS Enterprise from the Kelvin timeline. The USS Enterprise from the Kelvin timeline was primarily built at the Riverside Shipyard in Iowa, as depicted in J.J. Abrams' 2009 Star Trek reboot. Nevertheless, the ship's dedication plaque indicates that this alternate version of the Enterprise was launched from the San Francisco shipyards in 2258. In the Narada incursion timeline of Star Trek, the Enterprise was launched 13 years later than its original universe equivalent, owing to the consequences of the USS Kelvin's destruction. Under the command of Captain Christopher Pike and later Captain James T. Kirk, the Enterprise triumphed over Nero, Khan Noonien Singh, and Section 31 before meeting its end over Ultimate in 2263. Next, we have the USS Excelsior from Star Trek 3 to 6. Under the command of Captain Hikaru Sulu, the USS Excelsior was launched from the San Francisco Fleet Yards in 2285. As indicated by the dedication plaque seen in Star Trek VI, The Undiscovered Country. The USS Excelsior from Star Trek measures 466.6 meters in length and has a weight of 2,350,000 metric tons. It remains uncertain whether the plague marks the unsuccessful attempt to prevent Kirk, Sulu, and the other members of the Star Trek, the original series crew, from taking the USS Enterprise, or a later successful flight that occurred later in 2285. Although the major transwarp experiment failed, the USS Excelsior became a design icon, and Starfleet continued constructing Excelsior-class starships into the 24th century. Number 7. The USS Enterprise-A from Star Trek 4 to 6. It is evident that the Enterprise-A was moved from the San Francisco Fleet Yards to Space Dock 1 too soon. Star Trek V, The Final Frontier, shows that Captain Montgomery Scott had to manage several weeks of repairs following a problematic shakedown cruise. The USS Enterprise-A measures 288.6 meters in length, features 11 decks, and accommodates a crew of 430. One can't help but feel that the Enterprise-A's issues were a consequence for Kirk and his crew for having destroyed its predecessor. The Enterprise-A encountered Spock's malevolent brother Sybok and dealt with the Khitomer conspiracy before its retirement in 2293. The Enterprise-A is currently preserved in the Athens Prime Fleet Museum under the supervision of Commodore Geordie LaForge. Number 8, we have the USS Stargazer in Star Trek The Next Generation. The USS Stargazer measures 310 meters in length and was the inaugural starship commanded by Captain Jean-Luc Picard in Star Trek The Next Generation. In TNG Season 1 Episode 9, titled The Battle, Picard's reunion with the Stargazer was marked by the dedication plaque, which indicated that the vessel was constructed at the San Francisco Fleet Yards. Picard was on board the Stargazer from 2333 until 2355, the year the ship was lost during a confrontation with the Ferengi. The Battle of Maxia secured Picard's place in Starfleet's history, as he developed his own captain maneuver, leading to a significant court-martial, although he was ultimately exonerated of all accusations. Number 9. USS Sutherland from Star Trek The Next Generation. In the first episode of Season 5 of Star Trek The Next Generation, titled Redemption Part 2, Lieutenant Commander Data takes command of the USS Sutherland. The Sutherland was built at the San Francisco Fleet Yards and launched in 2367. During the Klingon Civil War, Data assumed temporary command of the USS Sutherland. While he was in charge of the Sutherland, Data encountered bias from his first officer, Lieutenant Christopher Hobson, who felt uneasy taking directions from an android. Nevertheless, the Sutherland played an essential role in revealing the Romulans' involvement in instigating the civil strife on the Klingon home planet. Number 10. USS Enterprise-E from Star Trek First Contact, Star Trek Nemesis. The Enterprise-E is showcased in the films Star Trek First Contact, Star Trek Insurrection, and Star Trek Nemesis, where it primarily serves as the main setting. It is the sixth starship in the Federation to bear the name Enterprise. After the destruction of the USS Enterprise-D on Viridian 3 during the finale of Star Trek Generations, the Federation needed a new flagship. The USS Enterprise-E, designated NCC-1701E, measures 685.7 meters in length. According to the dedication plaque featured in Star Trek First Contact, the USS Enterprise-E was constructed at the San Francisco Fleet Yards and launched in 2372. And number 11, the USS Prodigy from Star Trek Prodigy. The USS Prodigy, classified as a Protostar-class starship, is the newest vessel launched from the San Francisco Fleet Yards within the Star Trek universe. Officially launched in the year 2385, the Prodigy measures 139 meters in length. Under the guidance of Admiral Catherine Janeway, this starship is part of a unique initiative aimed at encouraging its youthful crew to uphold Starfleet's mission of exploration. With Gwyndala at the helm and Dal R.L. serving as her first officer, the Protostar aims to carry on the esteemed legacy of notable ships, such as the USS Enterprise and USS Discovery. Amid the challenging times following the attack on Mars, the USS Prodigy is poised to serve as a symbol of hope, much like many of its predecessors constructed in San Francisco. And that is all for today. Thanks for watching and catch you in the next one. Take care.